All right, everybody. Hey, welcome to this edition of NFL Football Talk. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. We've reached the halfway point of the season. Right now, you can see I'm wearing my my Dolphins shirt in support of my favorite football team ever. But going through some dark times right now. We'll be getting into that and a little bit more. Without further ado, let me go ahead and bring in my co-host, none other than Chris Lardieri. Follow him on Twitter at Chris L Sports. Also online, chrislsports.blogspot.com. So without further ado, one of the best football minds you will ever meet and hear and listen to anywhere. Mr. Lardieri, what's happening?
Wow, Charles, did you mean me or did you mistake me for someone else like the great minds at Bristol at ESPN? Thank you. I appreciate it. And I was going to ask you, what happened with the Dolphins? I know they had that great walk-off win on Halloween, but I haven't heard anything about them since then. Can you fill me in?
Oh yeah, I guess. Well, I'm going to be a little incognito about it, and not really fill you in. You know.
That's good. That's good.
That's a strange situation there, though, in Miami, because as things come out, and still, I think there's some piece to this puzzle that's missing, and now you have Tannehill saying that Jonathan Martin and Richie Incognito were the best of friends. So I don't know. I can't even say anything. I can't make any judgments. I just don't have enough facts to really, truly offer an opinion on the whole thing.
Yeah, this is starting to remind me of junior high in the locker room after PE when, something happens and the teacher comes in and wants to know who did it, and no one did anything, no one saw anything. The two kids that were fighting were really friends. They were horsing around.
Right.
So, yeah, it's good to know the NFL has evolved here in the 21st century. And I must say, with all the controversy that's been going on with the Redskins, I bet Dan Snyder's pretty happy to be taken out of the NFL headlines here for a little while.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see what happens with the Dolphins. The good thing is for the Dolphins and their fans is everything is as far as them as a team, they're in the thick of the playoff hunt there. They're 4-4 now, big win on last Thursday night over the Bengals in overtime with Cameron Wake getting that big sack there. And also this week coming up, no matter what happens amongst the offensive line, because it looks like they may have lost 40% of their starting offensive line there, but they do play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this coming Monday night. And the Buccaneers tend to be pretty, shall we say, user-friendly.
Yeah, unless you're the Seahawks there for a few quarters. That was a surprise to say the least. I don't know what happened there. Pete Carroll's team is asleep at the wheel. Yeah,
so the Seahawks, that's another team, getting healthy. I guess Percy Harvin's going to be back. Well, remember, this was the first time without Sidney Rice, too. Sidney Rice was out, so Harvin is out still. And, so that's a little bit of adjustment there. They still got beast mode there in the backfield in Marshawn Lynch, but I think it's a little bit of an adjustment they had to make. But going forward, I still think the Seahawks are going to be one of the tougher teams, and I still love Russell Wilson and what he's able to do. I mean, no quit in him at all, and just a second-year guy. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great games, as I mentioned last week, that I'm really looking forward to is the rematch in San Francisco with the 49ers in December.
Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it now. We're going to give everybody a little bit of a mid-season report card. A lot of the teams, there's been some surprises. There's been some disappointments and everything. So it's mid-season right now. Everybody's played 8 games, so let's go ahead and break things down a little bit. Start in the AFC. That's where the reigning Super Bowl champions are, and if you can really call them that. I mean, the Ravens. What's up with Ray Rice? Terrell Suggs, the defense. What is going on with the Ravens? I have my own theories on this, but Chris, let me get your take first as far as what's up with the Ravens.
I think it goes back to what I predicted in our preseason episode, that Joe Flacco doesn't have the weapons. The defense lost a lot of leaders, Ed Reed and Ray Lewis, to name a few. And we're in a transition year here, and I just think the combination of that, Flacco doesn't have his tight end to throw to, and the fact that you're the reigning Super Bowl champions and everyone guns for you on a week-to-week basis leads to, let's just say, a less than mediocre season. But to see the Browns beat up on them, I just really don't think this is the Ravens' year.
Okay, well, I think one thing is that we look at Ray Rice, who has always been, kind of been that rock for him when they could lean on him, and maybe because here he comes out before this last game and says that he hadn't really been 100% before, and now he's feeling healthy, and now everything is fine. And then what did he have? 11 carries for 17 yards, I think, something like that. So maybe it's reached the point where Ray Rice just simply isn't the running back that he once was. He's not that big a guy, for one thing. And so you never know when the drop-off is going to come. And for some of these guys, it can hit them pretty quickly. So maybe Ray Rice isn't the back that he once was.
Could be, and could also be a fact of kind of what I hit on earlier. Our defense is just keying on him and daring Flacco to throw.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Anquan Bolden anymore, for instance. Not sure. I mean, the way I look at it, I've, over the past 2 seasons, like to count out Chris Johnson and lift the guys like a cat 9 lives. He had a great game this past week. So I'm not ready to shovel dirt on Ray Rice yet. Could be a function of the team. Could be that he's saying that and he's really not 100%. Like a lot of these guys that play in the league today, it's very rare you're 100% through the whole season. So hard to say, but I hope for his sake he's not done yet. Great running back, and I don't just say that because he's a fellow Rutgers Scarlet Knight.
All right, so the Ravens sitting at 3-5, and obviously they need to get some things working here in the second half of the season. But staying in that AFC North there, what about Cleveland? And this is one of the things we were talking about before the show started here, and that was Cleveland. Here you have a team that they trade Trent Richardson, and everybody says the team is just kind of throwing in the towel. But the team has played better since Richardson has been gone, and then the team that they traded him to, the Indianapolis Colts, has played better as well. But Trent Richardson himself was not doing a whole lot with the Browns while he was there. Then he's gotten to the Colts, hasn't done a whole lot, so his whole thing has been negligible. But yet he has energized both teams because of his trade to the Colts. Can you make sense of all this for me?
No, I cannot, other than the fact that he's probably a pretty good decoy to where teams may still feel that there's a threat of the Colts running the ball with him now, far more viable than what they had. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's being traded in midseason, like we had talked about a few weeks ago. Don't see it happen a lot. It's not easy to pick up the playbook like it would be in baseball to just pitch from one team to another and maybe learn a few new signs. Could be a function of that. On the Browns side, we talked about before the show, the only thing I can equate this to is the old baseball movie Major League, where when the team got wind of the owner's real plans, that they started to rally the troops. So maybe when the Browns saw that looked like Mike Lombardi and crew had bailed on 2013, that they're like, hey, we're going to show these guys, and they've come around. And even with Brian Hoyer getting hurt and now another reincarnation of Jason Campbell,
right.
Teams playing well on both sides of the ball, really surprising. And given a lot of the mediocrity and disappointing teams we've seen in the AFC this season, they've got a legitimate wild card shot, and you don't have to rub your eyes when you look at the standings. It's legit.
All righty, holy Kelly Holcomb. The Browns just
wow.
might make the playoffs.
Tim Couch does not agree with you there.
All right, well, and over the AFC again, here's another team, and, the Browns there at 4-5, and in the AFC West, the Chargers playing well, here and there from week to week. But this last week, okay, playing the Redskins, you're down by 3 points. You have 1st and goal with less than a minute to play. The ball is on the 18-inch line. What in the world kind of play calling was that? And you have your timeouts left as well. So you can run the ball. 3 passing plays to try to get 18 inches. They don't do it. Kick a field goal, goes into overtime, they lose to the Redskins.
Yeah, really atrocious. I watched that whole final drive. Rivers really did a great job from the 2-minute warning on. Got his team, you would think, they're set up for a field goal. He got his team into scoring position with timeouts intact, as you mentioned. And the first play, they run Danny Woodhead, who after the review on the previous play turned out didn't get the ball over the pylon. They talked about he was on the sideline and bloodied. And they run an inside running play, and he gets stuffed and loses yards. And as Ian Eagle and Dan Felt said on the call, I'm not sure why Ryan Matthews is on the bench. Maybe he's hurt. No, maybe it's just terrible play calling and terrible coaching. Why is your number one back not in there when he had a pretty good game? Woodhead had just gotten banged up, and why are you calling that play? That's not Danny Woodhead's bread and butter, an inside run. And then 2 pass plays, one of which a fade to Gates. You know, I don't really think it's a good idea to throw from the 1-yard line when there's a lot less real estate and there are a lot of bodies stacked up there. Not once, the Chargers did it twice. And I know even after the fact, as the Chargers kick the field goal, they lose it in overtime. But Mike McCoy and or Ken Wisenhunt really need to be held accountable for that. That was some really bad play calling. To go on the road and beat the Redskins in Washington, that's the type of win you need to have if you're a team that's on the rise or if you're a team that thinks you're going to get a wild card berth. And from all accounts that I've read and heard, the air's really been let out of San Diego this week. So they got the Broncos coming to town. So, you know, in that case, you just have to pull the finger at the coaches, a real head scratcher. And I really thought, wow, the Chargers are going to win this game, and they really just a complete and utter head scratcher.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, 3 plays to get 18 inches. If you can move the ball 6 inches at a time, you'd. According to my high school math, that would be a touchdown.
I mean, come on, it's time to get the tackle-eligible play going. Get someone to throw a block.
Yeah, exactly. Where's Jumbo Elliott when you need him? All right, hey.
Perry.
Okay, and then what about, one of the games we talked about, that was Case Keenum, getting the start for Houston with the Texans there, and, looking pretty good, even though they got a lead on the Colts. The Colts came back and beat them, but I think that this is one of those games where it was a little bittersweet for the Texans because lost a game but found a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's legit, and he had a really nice game, especially in the first half, and then the unfortunate incident with Gary Kubiak passing out and being rushed to the hospital. It was just like the air was completely left out of the team, and I felt bad because that was a game the Texans could have won. It would have been a real nice turnaround game to get things going for them and rally around the young quarterback and put it into the Matt Schaub era, but it just wasn't meant to be, and this isn't the Texans season, and I think Sunday night was a microcosm of that. But Keenum looked good. I mean, even against the Chiefs, I think he showed some flashes of being a quality NFL quarterback, and it looks like they'll have the second half of the season to give him some learning, like our friend Nick Foles with Philadelphia.
Yep, true. And before we get to the NFC and talk about that great Nick Foles game, if you had to take a look at all these teams in the AFC, now we got 2 wild card teams, obviously, but the Jets at 5-4, Dolphins at 4-4, Cleveland at 4-5, Tennessee at 4-4, the Chargers at 4-4. What would you think? I mean, if you had to take a couple of those right now, who would you think is going to make it into the big dance there?
I really don't know, because all those teams to me are so up and down and so not just proverbially but literally mediocre. I really think it's going to be the team that either gets on a 2-game winning streak in the end of December and or has the most starters playing. It's so up and down. I mean, who would have thought that at the beginning of the season the Jets were, probably ranked as the 30th, the 32nd best team in the NFL power rankings, and look, they beat the Saints this week.
Yeah.
You look at the Chargers, weren't a lot of expectations for them. They could have easily had a winning record right now. Last week doesn't happen. Even the Titans with Locker going out, they still managed to hang around a nice win against the Rams. So I can't even go out on a limb. I mean, that's not even mentioning the Browns. I thought the Browns were going to be picking at least second next year in the draft. So I have no idea, and it's going to be very interesting. It'll be a close race, I'll tell you that.
And you look at the Jets, and they beat New Orleans after the Jets had gotten absolutely skunked the previous week, and then come out and put together this gem against New Orleans. That's the NFL today,
Yeah, I mean, you look at their schedule this year, and it's been loss, win, loss, win, loss. So they're just completely up and down. one week they show up, they beat the Falcons, the next week they throw a dud. It's amazing to me. But the other thing, looking forward a couple weeks, that Kansas City-Denver game is going to be pretty important. They're going to play each other twice down the stretch. But whichever team emerges from that, the loser is going to be one of the wild card teams with probably a pretty great record and have to likely go on the road in week one. I mean, if the Chiefs and Broncos split and the Chiefs continue to win out or get a game up on Denver's a wild card team. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, exactly. And remember that you got to give the edge to the Chiefs because they are playing basically a last place schedule this season. So their schedule is not very tough.
No.
Okay, so going over to the NFC, and we had talked about Nick Foles, his great day, 7 touchdown passes for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we talked before. I think they found a quarterback. You think they found a quarterback, but Chip Kelly is non-committal about this. Do you think maybe some of his he's got some college coaching stuff that he needs to just put aside and realize he's got to make some definite decisions here with the big boys?
Yeah, this I don't get at all. I mean, after that game, he should be your starter. We talked previously about how Foles is really the only legit quarterback in Philly, and they only seem to play well when he's in the starting lineup. What more do you need to do? I don't know if he thinks it's like college where he could do his little revolving door quarterback and switch guys in and out of plays, but Michael Vick was hurt or not playing at 100%, it seems, week to week. Matt Barkley is clearly not ready.
Right.
And Nick Foles threw 7 touchdowns. I think it's pretty easy. This isn't like the old controversy we had in San Francisco last year where Harbaugh was deciding between Alex Smith and Kaepernick, and everyone and their mother knew it was going to happen. I mean, this is a pretty clear decision. So I don't know if Chip Kelly is trying to show his poker face, but he's not doing a good job of it. The answer is clear.
Yeah, well, I'd be shocked if, barring some type of disaster, I would be truly shocked if Nick Foles winds up not starting the rest of the games this year, even when Vic is healthy.
Yeah, unless Foles is due some sort of arcane bonus we don't know about based on the number of games started, I can't think of an explanation.
Right. And then, the other division is going to be really interesting here as we look at the NFC North. You got Detroit, Chicago, and Green Bay all sitting at 5-3. And, of course, Green Bay just lost Aaron Rodgers to a broken collarbone there for the next, for at least probably the next month or so. So that's going to be an interesting race down the stretch.
Definitely. And similarly, 2 of those teams are going to be fighting it out for one wild card spot because either the 49ers or the Seahawks will get the first wild card spot. So, yeah, it's going to be a real dogfight like the good old days of the NFC North, former NFC Central, with the Monsters in the Midway and so on. And, it continues this week with the Lions and Bears. And everyone who had written off the Bears, Mr. McCown's having another nice comeback with them, a la Jason Campbell in Cleveland. Albeit they played a Green Bay team with Seneca Wallace, who I completely forgot was still in the league. But, the Bears can run, the Bears can play defense, and if Rodgers is out a few weeks, either they or Detroit could make a move here.
So what about, and that was the thing we talked about, Detroit becoming a legit team, but one of the teams I want to give credit to here, which we haven't really talked about at all this season, and in the NFC South, it's clearly everyone looks at New Orleans as the class of that division, and rightfully so somewhat, but how about Cam Newton and his Carolina Panthers? Do they do some love now?
Absolutely. I mean, this guy, all we heard about last year is a sophomore jinx and his attitude, sulking and Superman, and, had a real rough year, and Ron Rivera's job was on the line, and they've quietly come out of nowhere. I mean, they poured it on last week against the Falcons. I know the Falcons are beat up, but still, Newton's been playing really well. That defense has quietly been shutting opponents down. They got a tall order this week in San Francisco, but still, the strength of schedule a lot easier than, say, it would be for the Lions, Bears, and Packers, especially getting they'll get to play the Buccaneers again when they annihilated on a Thursday night a couple weeks back. I'm impressed. It looks like Newton's rebounded, and everyone who had written him off last year can forget about it. They're a legit wild card. or New Orleans in their division. Who's going to give them a hard time?
Yeah, and then New Orleans, announcing today that Jonathan Vilma, the linebacker, has been put on season-ending injured reserve. So takes a little bit of a bite out of New Orleans' defense there.
Yeah, definitely. He's a, emotional leader as well on the field. So Rob Ryan will probably have to figure something out there. And bad loss to his brother Rex last week on the field, and I'm sure at home too. He can't be too happy about that with his brother.
Yep, that's true. And then the NFC East, we just bounced back there for just a minute. The Eagles coming on it at 4-5. Washington sitting in the weeds there at 3-5. Dallas at 5-4. This is going to be, and we talked about the races in the AFC, but Philadelphia at 4-5. Then you got Chicago 5-3, Green Bay 5-3, Detroit 5-3. Carolina at 5-3, a couple of 6-2 teams in there. So the NFC is really too close to call as well.
Absolutely, and like I said, it's just going to be a survival of the fittest. And let's see who could string together a few wins. I think anyone now who tries to predict that is out of their mind. Just so much is happening the last 4 weeks in October and heading into early November. Look at where we thought teams were in September, and things have completely changed. And like we keep hitting on here, just the amount of injuries that pile up are staggering. So, whoever's got the best second and third stringers that are now getting quality playing time are the teams that are going to emerge and play in January.
Yeah, that's true. And, as we said, this is our kind of mid-season report card on the NFL, both the AFC and the NFC. And, hey, folks, we're doing our best here, but there's just a lot of stuff. I don't have my crystal ball. I dropped it when I was on my way out to take the garbage, and I kind of knocked it over. So I don't have my crystal ball to rub. But it hasn't been working this well for my picks this season anyway. So maybe it was time to get rid of it. I'm through with it.
Yeah, I lost mine. It's in the garage somewhere, but I don't have time to dig it out. But like you, I haven't predicted a Super Bowl winner correctly in years, so I probably should just give it away.
All right, so let's go ahead and, we got a little bit of time. What do you say about the getting into the picks of the week, or do you have something further for us before we start that?
Yeah, I'm all talked out about bullying and text messages and Vegas trips with the offensive line, so I think we can get into the pick segment. Other than that, I really don't know what else happened in the NFL this week, aside from some injuries and another Thursday night snoozer coming up. Well, I stay to get into the picks.
Thursday night snoozer? You mean? Oh, yeah, that one. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't mean Stanford, Oregon, which will probably, both those teams might be better than some NFL teams right now.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into the picks of the week here. All right, so you know what? The first game, let's go ahead and do you think there's going to be any surprises? Washington at Minnesota. We'll pick that. That's a Thursday night game here. So Washington at Minnesota. Washington coming off the win against the Chargers in Minnesota. Is there any chance that Minnesota kind of circles the wagons here and pulls out a win somehow?
I don't think so. I mean, I was really shocked that they hung in that long against Dallas. I don't know if that's more of an indictment of Dallas as it is Minnesota trying to show some signs of life, but not sold on Christian Ponder. Adrian Peterson's a lone ray of hope there. But from what I saw in Washington, it looks like RG3 is getting back into form, getting more comfortable. The running game's come alive. While the defense isn't great, if they can stop the run, they can get themselves a win. So I'm going with the Redskins. Okay,
so yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go with the Redskins in this game. I think I'm pretty comfortable with that. Do we have? Are we in agreement on that?
Absolutely.
All right, and then Oakland at the New York Giants. Oakland, a little bit topsy-turvy here. We don't know which Oakland team is going to show up from week to week. And the New York Giants is on a little bit of a roll. Every win streak starts with 2 games. So Giants at home against Oakland. You know what? I am going to go with the New York Giants on this one. I like the way they've been playing, and I think the Giants can get on a little bit of a roll here. I like the Giants at home against Oakland.
Yeah, I'm going to go with them too, and for two main reasons. One, they're coming off a bye, so a lot of these guys that are banged up will have some time off. And number two, Andre Brown. Unless you're a hardcore Giants fan, you may not remember him. Guy always runs hard. Had a nice game on a Thursday night against Carolina last year, but always manages to end up with a serious injury, whether it's a broken leg or a knee. I think they really miss a legitimate threat in the backfield. He could definitely help them out. They won't need to rely on Peyton Hillis, and thinking that'll take some pressure off of Eli this week.
Okay, so it was both going to go with the Giants on that one. Now, next game, Buffalo Bills, who, if they had any type of a clue as to how to win a game, would have knocked off Kansas City this past weekend. Buffalo Bills in Pittsburgh to face a Steelers team that it looks like, the last time that I saw the Steelers in this state, I think, was at the very end of the Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann, John Stallworth era, that great Steelers team of the 70s, in that early 80s stage when, finally the team had, all those old guys had retired, and there were some dark years in there. But it looks like the Steelers are facing a lot of questions now. They took a real butt-whooping at the hand of the New England Patriots last week. What do you think here? Buffalo at Pittsburgh.
I know what you're talking about, the Bubby Brister and Walter Apple
yes.
days. I remember them well. I normally would pick the Steelers, but after hearing that E.J. Manuel has been cleared to play, and the fact that you can't get any worse than the Tool, Mr. Tool at quarterback in Buffalo, likes to hand victories to the opposing defense, I'm going to go with Buffalo here, and I guess some semblance of an upset. I think they've played tough in a lot of their games this year. Manuel was starting to play really well when he got hurt against Cleveland on that Thursday night. So I think it'll give them the spark they need, and I'll pick the Bills.
All righty. I do love the Steelers, as we all know here, but I'm gonna agree with you here. And I saw what Mike Tomlin was saying also. It sounds like he's really pretty disgusted / fed up with the team as well, and the effort that's being put forth, because they just got steamrolled by New England in the fourth quarter. But I'm going to go with Buffalo as well here. And, this will be it for the Steelers. I think it's time to go ahead and put out the RIP signs for the Pittsburgh Steelers for this season.
Yeah, the defense stunks. What you should do is blame Todd Haley, right?
There you go. Okay, now here's a doozy coming up here. Okay, division rivalry. Cincinnati Bengals, Andy Dalton, A.J. Green, Gio Bernard in Baltimore to play against the Ravens, who have been reeling and struggling. Do the Ravens, can they circle the wagons this week, and do the Ravens win this game? I think, I'm going to pick this one here. I think that I got to go with Cincinnati. That's it. I mean, it was a disappointing loss they had to the Dolphins this past Thursday, but I think Cincinnati gets it together again. And a few too many weapons for the Ravens defense, which hasn't been playing that well. And then also, they got a pretty good push up front there, even though they lost one of their best defensive linemen. But still, I like Cincinnati to win this game.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a completely winnable game for the Bengals. Andy Dalton had a couple terrible interceptions, and that sack in the end zone was inexcusable. I think they shake it off. They've got an extra 3 days off from last week. Bernard showed his Barry Sanders and that nice touchdown run late in the game, and I think the Bengals rebound. They're on a push to win that division, and even with the loss of Gene Atkins, which would be huge, I'm just not impressed with the way the Ravens are playing right now.
All right, and then one of the games we kind of touched on earlier when we were doing the report card, that is the Carolina Panthers playing pretty well, going into San Francisco to play against the 49ers. How do you see that game shaking out?
I'm going with San Francisco. They're coming off a bye. I believe Aldon Smith, fresh out of rehab and clearing his legal issues, will be back. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers put up a good fight. I don't think they're going to pull an upset like the Colts did earlier this season, but I can see Cam Newton throwing the ball, but I'm still going to go with Kaepernick and the 49ers. They're already on a collision course for that big matchup against the Seahawks in a few weeks.
Yep. Okay, and then the final game. This should be a fun game to watch. Dallas Cowboys in New Orleans to play the Saints. Tony Romo, who puts up, what can I say, more meaningless stats than anyone I know, in New Orleans to play against Drew Brees and the Saints. This should be a good old-fashioned shootout because when Romo gets out there, when the Cowboys get out there, the Saints get out there, the ball's going to be hurled around the field between the two quarterbacks. I expect probably 80 passes to be thrown. So, but I'm looking at New Orleans to win this game. One, not only they're playing at home, but New Orleans knows about shootouts, and I think I've seen the Cowboys get in shootouts before, and all too often, when the Cowboys get into shootouts, they come up on the short end. I'm taking New Orleans in this game.
I agree. I do not trust the Dallas defense. I think New Orleans, coming off a loss, very dangerous. Sean Payton want to beat up on his former employer, as will Rob Ryan. I'm sure there's no love lost there for the Cowboys putting him out of work last year. And on top of that, like you said, it was a great analogy. Romo does put up a lot of meaningless stats, but I think the New Orleans defense will make the stops when they have to. I'm hoping it's a nice shootout, a 48-45 affair. I know the people at NBC feel the same way, but I'm still going with Drew Brees and the Saints.
All right, there we go. And I believe we wound up agreeing on every game this week, so we'll just kind of see how everything plays out as far as the picks go. There we see for the year. I went 3-3 last week. Chris was 4-2. I've got an abysmal record of 21-33 on the season. Chris, you're respectable 30-24, which is really the best one could hope for in a topsy-turvy football season like we've had this year.
Yeah, I don't know what the gamblers are saying in Vegas, but it's definitely been odd. It's just, I look at like that Jets-Saints game or even the Vikings nearly beating the Cowboys.
Right.
I realize why. This is why I don't bet on the NFL. It's just too darn hard.
Yeah, and it's not. Well, betting when you gamble, it makes it too hard to just sit back and enjoy the games, and especially in a year like this. So it's about time to get on out of here, everybody. So remember, Football Talk's an Inside Sports production. We're changing the world one sport at a time. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheInsideSports. Follow Mr. Lardieri on Twitter at Chris L Sports, or read him online, chrislsports.blogspot.com. Chris, before we go, any final words?
Yeah, my sister-in-law is a big fantasy football player, and she was out of town, so she asked me to help her out with her lineup. And after just one day of looking at fantasy football stats, and lineups, and all that, I've realized that this is my first year not playing in, probably 12, 13 years, maybe even longer. And I realize I do not miss fantasy football at all. And I'm not passing judgment on anyone who does play it, but the games pass me by, kind of hitting on what I said earlier about betting on the NFL. I don't know how you keep track of who's starting, who's hurt, who's sitting. It's practically a full-time job, and I give credit to Matthew Berry at ESPN, who's made a full-time career out of it. But, this is like work. I think I'd rather, pick stocks for my IRA as opposed to set my fantasy football lineup week to week. But, yeah, I don't miss it at all. And being able to just watch football as a fan and an observer and a commentator is far more enjoyable. So I guess that makes me an old man, right, Charles?
It does, and I'm even older because I have never even signed up for one season of fantasy football because I am a purist of the sport. And again, I know a lot of people play fantasy football, and it does add to the popularity of the league and the numbers, the revenue, the income, and makes the NFL what it is today, which is the most popular sport in this great country of ours, and that's just the way it is.
Yes, and apparently it's a league filled with bullies, but what can we do?
Well, what we can do is go ahead and sign off here. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. This is an Inside Sports production, so for Mr. Chris Lardieri, hey, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Football Talk.